sure to pick up some batteries, make sure to get the proper cassettes for the recorder, take down the screen, get dog food.
In 1993, you were appointed the International Manufacturing Manager for Post-it Products, and in 1996 moved to 3M Australia, where you were the Manufacturing Director. Today, you are 3M's Vice President of Environment, Health, and Safety. You have been very active in serving communities where you have lived. While living in Taipei, Taiwan, you volunteered as a Management Committee member for the Community Services Center. You are currently on the Board of Trustees for the Minnesota, South Dakota, and North Dakota chapter of the Nature Conservancy. Jean, you have been an extraordinary contributor to MSU, having served on the Chemical Engineering Advisory Board from 1996 to 2004 and on the College of Engineering Advisory Council for at least 13 years. You also serve on the Board of Governors for the MSU Alumni Foundation. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as an inaugural member of the MSU College of Engineering's Academy of Distinguished Alumni. Michael Sanderson, as President and CEO of Sanderson Stewart, a regional engineering and planning firm with offices in Montana, North Dakota, and Colorado, you oversee the firm's operations. In addition to your executive role, you are actively engaged in project management on a variety of transportation and land development projects. Your expertise in planning and designing transportation facilities that promote non-motorized connections and enhance community sustainability has allowed you to work on complex and sometimes controversial projects with diverse constituencies. You are particularly recognized for your effective communication and consensus building. Michael, you are a fellow in the Institute of Transportation Engineers and serve on its International Board of Direction, the first Montanan to hold this distinction. You are a licensed professional engineer, a certified professional traffic operations engineer, a lead accredited professional, and a national course instructor certified by the National Center for Safe Routes to School. You are an active MSU alumnus who serves on the College of Engineering Advisory Council, the Museum of the Rockies Board of Trustees, the MSU President's Advisory Council, and the MSU Planning Council. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as an inaugural member of the MSU College of Engineering's Academy of Distinguished Alumni. Margaret Mitchell, Vice President of Information Management and of Technologies at American Express. You have worked for more than 24 years in the information technologies industry. You began your career developing operating system software for Honeywell and Bull Information Systems. In 1994, you had joined American Express as a senior software engineer and have held a variety of positions within American Express Technologies, including being part of the team that launched the first American Express website. You are currently leading a global team in the migration of the 600-plus mid-range databases and associated storage to American Express's new data center. In 1999, you received a Master's in International Management from the American Graduate School of International Management, Thunderbird. Margaret, in 1988, you received your Bachelor's of Science degree in Computer Science from Montana State University. You hold 2 U.S. patents for inventions developed at American Express. You are a member of Arizona State University's Department of Information Systems Professional Advisory Board, MSU's Engineering Advisory Council, and the sponsor of the Arizona Chapter of Women in Technologies for American Express. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as an inaugural member of the MSU College of Engineering's Academy of Distinguished Alumni. Brian Robertus, you have distinguished yourself as a successful entrepreneur, inventor, and longtime member of the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department's External Advisory Council. You founded Advanced Electronic Designs, AED, here in Bozeman in 1994. Since then, you have grown the business to a dozen employees, with 10 being MSU EE alumni. AED is a company representing the best achievements of MSU alumni. In addition to hiring many MSU College of Engineering alumni, you have been a highly influential member of the ECE Department's External Advisory Council for more than 10 years. You have also volunteered as an advisor for senior design projects and have hosted many tours and talks regarding your engineering, design, and entrepreneurial work. In recent years, you have received national attention for your company's work in designing large LED display units in New York Times Square, which is an astounding accomplishment for a small company located in Bozeman. What's more, Brian, your team designed the large new LED video display screen in MSU's renovated scoreboard for Bobcat Stadium, along with its incredible audio sound system. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as an inaugural member of the MSU College of Engineering's Academy of Distinguished Alumni. Ryan Parker, as Director of Cloud Planning for Intel's Data Center Group, you lead Intel's long-term cloud strategy and solutions roadmap. You guide your clients and customers to create innovative solutions in an effort to realize the flexibility and economies of scale of the cloud. You began your career as an industrial engineer implementing Intel's factory capacity planning system and managing complex software projects. You quickly gained responsibility in strategically determining target market segments for business investment and managing product planning teams. You joined Intel's Ericsson account team in Sweden and then returned to Arizona to lead the Embedded Computing Division's marketing department, which consisted of segment marketing, product marketing, silicon design, platform architecture, and application engineering. In service to MSU, Ryan, you have been a member of the College of Engineering's Advisory Council for several years and have served as an advocate and consultant for the newly proposed Bachelor's of Science degree in Financial Engineering. Your work has been featured in the New York Times, Money Magazine, Business Week, and Wired, among others, and you are a W.P. Carey NBA Distinguished Speaker. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as an inaugural member of the MSU College of Engineering's Academy of Distinguished Alumni. Dr. John Mendel, you were a research associate and principal research associate at MIT from 1971 to 1988, where you earned your PhD. You are a member of 6 materials and engineering societies, a journal editorial board member, and have more than 125 technical publications. Your research focus is the mechanical properties of polymers and composites, with an emphasis on fatigue and fracture. In 2010, you received the Golden Mercos Medal Award from EMPA, an interdisciplinary research institution for material sciences and technology in Switzerland. In 2003, you received the U.S. Department of Energy Wind Energy Program Outstanding Research and Development Partnership Award, and in 1996, MSU's Wiley Research Award. Dr. Mandel, you have been a research advisor for more than 40 graduate students at MSU. Your research lab was one of MSU's first to have more than $1 million in research expenditures and was instrumental in helping MSU rise to the top tier of Carnegie Foundation for the advancement of teaching classifications. Your work will have an impact on all of our lives as wind energy becomes a more significant part of U.S. energy systems. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as the first recipient of the MSU College of Engineering's Distinguished Faculty Award. Heidi Sherrick, you taught junior high science and coached for 5 years before returning to MSU. You are MSU's Assistant Director of Alumni for 4 years while earning your master's degree in higher education administration and were an MSU orientation staff member for more than 10 years. As the College of Engineering's Assistant Dean, you oversaw all aspects of undergraduate education and were charged with increasing student diversity by recruiting, advising, and supporting minorities. You have advised scores of engineering ambassadors, students chosen to represent the college. Beyond MSU, you were involved in the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation's Engineering Schools of the West initiative, comprised of 9 institutions selected for a commitment to rigorous assessment and ability to sustain long-term outcomes. Heidi, you pioneered efforts to help K-12 teachers on and near Montana's reservations teach engineering applications in math and science. You played a key role in establishing the Turkish dual degree programs in the International Engineering Certificate. Many of your efforts culminated in the College of Engineering selection as a 2012 regional winner of the College Keys Compact Innovation Award. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as the first recipient of the MSU College of Engineering's Distinguished Staff Award. Dr. Rod Ray, CEO of Bend Research, Inc. You hold a BS degree in chemical engineering from Oregon State University and a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Colorado. Your academic record is impressive, with more than 40 peer-reviewed publications and many technical reports and professional presentations. You have been instrumental in building Bend Research into an international leader in pharmaceutical process development and consulting. You are committed to your community and employees, and your civic involvement is exemplary, serving on the board of directors of numerous charitable and educational entities. You have been a member of the Chemical and Biological Engineering Department Advisory Board at MSU since 2003 and the College of Engineering Advisory Council since 2009. Your contributions help sustain the quality of our programs and strengthen the institution. Perhaps of greater import, Dr. Ray, you advocate for MSU by hiring our graduates and by funding MSU research to educate graduate students in research relevant to pharmaceutical processing. You have been quoted in several news outlets touting both the technical capabilities and work ethic of MSU's engineering graduates. For all of these reasons and more, we proudly honor you today as the first recipient of the MSU College of Engineering's Honorary Alumni Award. Mechanical systems, or MEMS, and micro-optical devices required for his own research, it also accommodates similar needs of other faculty and of industrial contacts in Montana and the Pacific Northwest. MSU engineering and science students have also benefited from the MMF. Because of the MMF, Dr. Todd Kaiser created 3 new upper division and graduate classes in which students grow their own wafers and construct their own devices. David is an accomplished scholar as well, with 76 journal and conference papers, 3 book chapters, and 14 patents. During his 16 years at MSU, he has supervised 2 postdoctoral researchers and graduated 3 PhDs, with 3 more in progress and 12 master's students. He has also supervised 23 undergraduate students and 4 international visitors in his lab. He's attracted more than $4 million external research dollars beyond those used to establish the MMF. A letter from Pete Roos, CEO and co-founder of Bridger Photonics Incorporated, focuses on the impact of David's recent innovative development and technology transfer of MEMS-based mirrors. Bridger Photonics, which was established in 2006, has 15 employees and more than $2 million in annual revenues. With federal and state grants, they are working to develop and advance David's flexible membrane mirror technology for biomedical applications. Applying the technology to confocal microscopy will enable rapid tissue examination without painful, time-consuming, and potentially misleading biopsies, which require tissue removal. The small size of David's devices, which makes them so useful for biomedical applications, might also help engineers improve cell phone cameras. Membrane mirror technology offers the potential for compact and extremely inexpensive zoom lenses that don't rely on mechanical parts, which can be bulky and prone to failure. According to Ruth, David is a world-renowned leader in his field, and his innovative technologies lead to useful products with clear and significant impacts on society. He goes on to say that, quote, "At Bridger Photonics, we take every opportunity possible to interact with him and capitalize on his creativity and innovations." The Lloyd Berg Faculty Mentorship Award goes to Dr. Sarah Codd. This is the first year during which the Lloyd Berg Faculty Mentorship Award was not restricted to chemical and biological engineering faculty members. It was established and endowed by Jerry Giese, a retired chemical engineer and MSU alumnus, to honor Dr. Lloyd Berg. Berg established the COE's Chemical Engineering Department, served as department head for 33 years, and steadfastly supported students throughout his career. The award recognizes faculty who exemplify a deep commitment to fostering the professional and personal development of students. The purpose of the award is to recognize demonstrated excellence in mentoring undergraduate students, to encourage mentoring relationships with undergraduate students, and to convey the campus's high regard for such contributions made by faculty of the academic and research community. It is evident from the nomination that students take note of how Sarah lives her life. More than one expressed admiration for her ability to balance work and personal life and to lead by example. Several commented on her wide-ranging efforts that she applies to helping others. They encompass teaching, research, and community service. Rather than pushing, she encourages and inspires students to extend their goals beyond what they initially set for themselves. All 8 people who contributed to the nomination, undergraduate and graduate students alike, described ways in which their lives have been enriched because Sarah takes an interest in them as students, scholars, and fellow human beings. They expressed a profound appreciation for her willingness to make herself available to give an impromptu lab tour, describe difficult concepts, answer phone calls from home, guide research, and support participation in academic conferences and international research efforts.
People in Kenya, Engineers Without Borders
At MSU has done even more. Our students have new ways to earn college credit, they have a wider global view, and they know they can improve people's lives. But the Montana impact is beyond our campus. In a city 2 hours away, middle school students were so inspired by EWB that they raised more than $10,000 to drill a well. So they might never visit Kenya, but they're connected to Kenyans. It's amazing to see the ripple effects of EWB at Montana State. As meaningful as it is to provide safe drinking water to people in Kenya, Engineers Without Borders at MSU has done even more. Our students have new ways to earn college credit, they have a wider global view, and they know they can improve people's lives. But the Montana impact is beyond our campus. In a city 2 hours away, middle school students were so inspired by EWB that they raised more than $10,000 to drill a well. So they might never visit Kenya, but they're connected to Kenyans. The ripple effects of EWB at MSU are amazing. As meaningful as it is to provide safe drinking water to people in Kenya, Engineers Without Borders at MSU has done even more. Our students have new ways to earn college credit, they have a wider global view, and they know they can improve people's lives. But the impact in Montana is beyond our campus. In a city 2 hours away, middle school students were so inspired by EWB that they raised more than $10,000 to drill a well. So they might never visit Kenya, but they're connected to Kenyans. It's amazing to see the ripple effects of EWB at Montana State.
Because of the way that I communicate. Archetypes are kind of the politically correct perspective of stereotypes. And women have an archetype of meaning one thing when they're nodding their head, versus men who mean another thing when they're nodding their head. So when I'm in a conversation with my employees, I learned this the hard way, and they're telling me about this project that they're jazzed up about, I am intently listening. I'm right there with them, right? What am I saying? I hear you. I understand. Go ahead, I'm with you. I'm listening. I understand the basic nodding of the head. For the person that I'm talking to, classical 95%, the male is going to think that I'm saying, I agree. Yep, that's a good idea. So when I get to the end of the meeting, I've been doing this the whole time, and then I say, no, let's not do that. Then we have a miscommunication. So the communication, the micro messages that you send, may be intentional. Another example, on the International Space Station, we have international partners. We've been with the Russian partners for a while and working with the Japanese. And they're coming up on the next launch. The ESA or Europeans are up already. But in negotiating with the Russians versus the Japanese, you have to understand what no really means. Okay? So the Russian no, preferring perspective of saying no. The Russians are 60-70% telling you yes, but I really can't say that right now. So they have to say yes, no. A lot of things behind the no than what are their answers. Versus talking with the Japanese will say absolutely yes, yes. And what do they mean? No. It's very good. We'll get right with you, Brian. And they mean no. So you have to understand what culture you're in and which perspective you're on. But you can leverage the emotional intelligence by converting defending to befriending. Many of you in this room are familiar with being a first at something. Maybe a first in your neighborhood, or a first in your family, or maybe in your town. One of my firsts was being the first female engineer at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station on the Delta program. And being the first at anything really involves meeting and dealing with challenges. You have a choice. You can emphasize those past barriers or choose to build new bridges. It's really nothing that we learn in engineering school. but it's a good way to flex your EI muscles. Let me tell you a couple stories about being the first at the launch site. I started at the launch site, and one of the big discussions was about the blockhouse. The blockhouse is a partially buried building where we launch vehicles from. And the big debate was, we can't have her run a console. There's only one restroom. So I helped them with that. I told them, I really don't have to have a lock on the door. It's okay. But I do insist on a door. And with that, we resolved. We had one restroom and it had a door now since they added it for me, and we're good to go. Similarly, where's Julie? Wearing the uniform. There she is, Julie. All right. Julie can relate to this. I worked at the Chickenham Air Force Station, and I went to have lunch with a good friend of mine on the other hall, and she introduced me to a major in the Air Force that had come in. And this young lady introduced me and said, she works over in engineering. And the major, who should have known better, said, oh, really? Are you a draftsman or a secretary? So being the prankster that I am, I let that go. So I ducked my head. I think I almost shuffled my feet. And I said, no, I'm just an engineer. And he realized his error, his assumption, and started to backpedal and wanted to know, where'd you go to college? So I said, for my bachelor's or my master's? So sometimes you got to push back a little bit associated with those bridges when it doesn't harm anything. Working on those barriers and trying to build those bridges. If you don't leverage your emotional intelligence, it can be a problem. The primary causes of executive career problems are EI related. Not handling change well, not working well in a team, and poor interpersonal skills. Those drive a lot of issues in the executive ranks. And you have to learn to work with teams. So how do you build your EI? Awareness is the first step. Everything you say, every email you send is more than just words. It's also the micro messages that you choose. How many of you had younger siblings who have kids? Could you tell the difference when your younger sibling or your child really only knew a couple words? And as you came home one day with this new toy, could you tell the difference between when they said, as they greeted you in the door, mine? And later on, when they get in an argument, they said, mine! Significant elements of communication that we don't always think about. Or passing a colleague in the hall, and I say, how are you doing? And they give me, I am fine. What's fine there? You got to understand those micro messages. So what are micro messages? They're small, subtle, seemingly unimportant communications. They're transmitted by words, signals, or tone, body language, expression, inflection, and other means for one person or a group to another person or a group. Individuals send from 40 to 150 micro messages to each other in a 10-minute conversation. 150 micro messages in 10 minutes. These messages can be intentional or unintentional and may be received as positive or negative. Now Whitney's going to help me with an example. When she's coming up, I'll tell you what it is. The combination of HP and Compaq. They needed to decide who was going to be the leader of this new company. Was it going to be Carly Fiorina or Michael Capella? I'm going to be Carly. But he's going to be Michael. We're dressed to the nine. We're going to present to you all the board of directors. Michael has won a very important straw pulling contest. He gets to go first. Watch what Carly does with respect to micro-messages. We're back here. We're waiting to be announced. The announcement's made. Michael's going to address the board of directors first. And we start. Charlie got the job. Right? Poor Michael was sabotaged. Here he thinks he's in good shape. He's going to go give the speech to the board of directors. And as he starts, she stops him, adjusts his tie, pats him on the shoulder, and says, "Go right ahead, I'm taking care of it." Micro-messages. That may not be the best example of how you can use them, but you can see how powerful they can be. And one thing I would say from a suggestion to you guys, even though you can multiplex, your partner in a conversation will not necessarily appreciate your capability. And so that's actually very important for you guys as you go forward. There are going to be generation gaps. And the technology that we have today, the capabilities that you guys have with respect to multiplexing, as you're on the cell phone, sending a text message with your right thumb, and holding a conversation with your boss, he or she is probably not going to be impressed. Right? So think about the generations that you're talking with, and what culture do you need to fit in with, and how would you communicate? What message are you giving them, unintentionally in that case, if you are multiplexing? What message are you giving if you reach to answer a phone in the middle of a conversation? The person on the other end of the phone is more important. So be conscious of those messages, even though you're perfectly capable of multiplexing. Heidi was talking about it today, right? Perfectly capable of multiple conversations. How will it be perceived? If awareness is the first step, then patience is the next. Okay? How do you develop your EI skills? Building your EI is all about understanding the E. Right? How do you understand emotion work? I told you I was the first female at the launch site, but I didn't tell you how I got the job. So I showed up for the interview, and the guy that was interviewing me, Kate, he was very concerned because I would be the first female there, and it was pretty much a rough facility. A lot of joking and cranking and things that went on there. So he told me about that, and he was a little concerned with it. And all through the interview, he's talking with me. Like this. So he gets to the end of the interview, and he says, "Well, Joyce, would you like to work with Chloe?" And I said, "Well, Bill, I don't really think so." He said, "Well, really? Why not?" And I said, "Well, if Boeing doesn't pay their managers enough so that they can get shoes without holding them on, I don't think I want to work here." Now, I don't know what came over me. But I told him what he needed to know. I could fit into that culture, I could crank with the best of them, and everything would be okay. His response to that, by the way, was to pick up my socks. Again, I'm not sure that's the best example of how you do your first interviews. For me, it worked. I responded in a way that he then understood that I'd fit in. And he was comfortable hiring me because his perception was that I could handle what was being thrown. It's not always easy to do. It's our first tendency to react emotionally. So advice here is a little easier than action, but it does get better with time. So it is something that you need to practice. Okay, don't get frustrated with it. Something we say in woodworking may help. Measure twice, cut once. So when you apply that to the office, think twice and speak once. If you apply it to email, it would be read twice, send once, or maybe not at all. Just think about those things. So, EI is more than just knowing and applying insight to patients. We can actually learn about EI. If you do some reading, they really divide EI into 4 section areas. Self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So self-regulation, the ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses, suspend judgment, and think before acting. Most of us would say that we don't prejudge and our actions are rational. And most of the time, they appear just that way. It's on the impulse moments that really reveal our EI. So imagine, if you will, that I am holding a prize-winning, nationally known Florida navel orange. Okay? Beautiful. Bright orange color, nice little vintage keeper. Keep me smell it. Can't you smell it? We got this orange. And then it splash. I squeeze this orange, and what do I get out of it? Orange juice. I get out whatever is on the inside. So apply that to the moments when you're under stress. Apply that to those impulse moments. So that you can then learn from those things where, when you're under stress, what comes out? Whatever's on the inside, right? You assume that it's orange juice. You assume that your emotional shell is there, but when you get stressed, it's whatever is going to come out. So use those moments. They don't have to be bad moments. They can just be mistakes or lessons that you want to apply and move from to understand what emotions you have in here. And maybe you want to work on them, and maybe you want to increase them. Right? So whatever's on the inside. So examining our impulse moments for what's on the inside will give us the opportunity to grow our emotional intelligence. It can be as simple as dealing with an errant comment in an executive meeting, or it can be as complex as confronting a deeply ingrained organizational barrier. So errant comment was briefing in my functional job. She told me about was briefing a group of vice presidents. One of them was, or is, a rear admiral in the Navy, and he did not like what I was trying to sell. So when he got to the end, he said, almost in a condescending manner, he said, you know, this is a pretty good idea, but it's very, very important that as we implement this idea, that it is like the Navy diver. And everybody braced themselves for a Navy speech. It has to be like the Navy diver. When they go in, there should be zero splash. As you implement this, there needs to be zero splash. And I said, I understand that. That's one of the reasons I'm here. The other reason is I want to make sure that when I go in, you're not standing on my air hose. Right? So what am I telling you? I honor what you're saying. I'm going to do that. I'm here to get your buy-in, and don't go back on your word. Right? You deal with those comments instead of exploding emotionally. Confronting deeply ingrained organizational emotions. When I started in that blockhouse, I got called over to fix the switch. And it was just a basic problem where the switch was popping off. But that basic problem meant that you couldn't control the vehicle. And this propulsion engineer who's been there for 30 years, he said, you got to get this fixed, little girl. And it was like E.F. Hutton in the blockhouse. What is she going to do? He was not going to change his opinion based on whatever I said or did. If he was going to change, it was going to happen over time. So, water up the duck's back, press forward. We didn't even mention it, we went on. And ultimately, he did change his mind. We worked very well together. Later in my career, it seems I grew up, when a chief engineer I worked with said, that's just the way it's going to be, little lady. But he meant no offense. For him, in Texas, little lady was a term of endearment. So again, it was something that I ignored. We probably all have little lady stories or phrases that we use. I grew up in Florida, so everything is guys. If it was in the north, it would be use guys. So you have to be careful. People take offense. I don't mean any exclusion. It's just the way I grew up. Having to adjust to Texas, it's y'all. What's the plural of y'all? All y'all. Very good. Adapt to the culture that you're in, right? So the ability to stay in control, be adaptive, build trust rather than barriers, and innovatively work to change the organizations. So let me confuse you. It's not about being without emotion. Sometimes that emotion needs to be there to be defensive if they're pushing you too hard, and it also is the passion in what you do. Motivation. We talked about self-regulation, motivation. Passion for work beyond the money and the status, and the drive to pursue goals with energy and persistence. Do I like what I'm doing? I studied electrical engineering, but it was kind of a fluke. Electrical was a fairly versatile field for me. My father advised me to go into engineering. He was in business, and he had a sign in his office that says, "I wish I could buy an engineer for what they're worth, sell them for what they think they're worth." But he recognized that if I wanted to stay in the technical field, which I liked the math and science, and I liked the big picture of management, I needed an engineering degree. So he advised me to go into electrical engineering. So I would not have answered the question in your stead in the university to say, "Oh, I really like blank." I enjoyed the engineering, but I wasn't going to delve into it and do design engineering. It was more of the big picture. So when I got out, I knew I needed more technical. I went back, and ultimately went back for an MBA when I wanted to do management. Passionate about what you do. When I was putting this presentation together, I received an email from the press conference. And astronaut Dan Tanning just landed. He was on station. He said, "Today I feel very optimistic about our program and the world. It's a great day for me today. A few days ago, I grabbed the high-definition camera and shot from one end of the station to the other. I shot the entire crew working. We were doing robotics and EVA and exercise and science all at the same time in space, which is exactly like those movies 25 years ago that show how it would be someday working in space." There's a guy that's passionate about the work that he does. Okay. It is work. Don't have unreasonable expectations, but you need to enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, you really won't be able to build a bridge if you don't want to go anywhere. And you won't be able to take people along with you if you don't have insight to their feelings.